You guys, welcome back to the channel. Quick review here today of the E-Viratrue 7075 hard anodized wheel. Now, these are sold for, listed for a couple different models. I believe he has them listed for Sentin, Baja Rey, RZR Rey, and I'm sure you can make these fit on a lot of different vehicles. They're basically your 2.2, 3.0, short course style wheel with a 12 mil hex. Again, these are hard anodized, so they have a very nice finish, very nicely machined, true beadlock style front and rear ring. And I'll be replacing these stock wheels. One of the big reasons I wanted to replace the stock wheels on this RZR Rey is that these are fairly weak. You can see on this one already, I started getting a crack going from the hole in the center here out to one of the spokes. I had glued it, but on top of that, you know, it's very easy to round out these wheel hexes and these plastic wheels. So yeah, these are going to be a very nice addition. I was able to remove the stock tires using some heat. You can use a heat gun, but by far the best method is to throw these wheels in the oven. I had really good luck at 250 degrees for about 15 minutes. Just be careful when you take them out, wear some thick gloves or some oven mitts and just kind of push around the center. I actually found it works good. I took like a big spoon and I kind of just jammed it in a lip and slowly just kind of worked my way around the edge, just cracking the glue as I went and just kind of pushing it with the spoon. It's just easier to get in there and get that edge where the glue sits with the spoon. And again, don't use anything sharp. That's the great part about using a spoon. It's nice and smooth on the edges and no issues. These tires are perfectly fine to reuse. You will get the slightest little bit of maybe the edge of some of the rubber coming off and sticking, as well as some of the foam, but it's really no issue in terms of mounting them on the new rim. I already did this one. So one thing to note with these wheels, and this is going to be very important depending on what vehicle you are putting these on. For one thing, they aren't as wide. These are 5 millimeters narrower overall. So it's going to make your tires kind of a little bit taller, a little bit narrower, kind of affect the tread profile a tiny bit. But the more important thing, and you could even see if you hold the two faces here, see how this one is set down further, the center line of the hub. So the offset, the E-Viratrue wheels are going to stick out 5 millimeters more than these stock RZR Rey wheels. And then also this inner part, because it's 5 millimeters narrower, is going to put the rear portion of your tire 10 millimeters out more, but you will gain a tiny bit of height on your tire. So just make a note of that. The offset is different. If you're running these on a vehicle that has like a full fender, like a short course style truck, you may have some rubbing issues. It's 5 millimeters, may not be a huge issue, but it may cause the tires to rub a little bit on the body. So just be aware of that. And as far as weight goes, so these are 35 grams, these are 145, so 110 grams heavier per wheel, 440 total for the whole vehicle. That's a decent amount. Now, it's definitely going to add to the stability of the rig, having some weight down low, but kind of negative on just about everything else. Acceleration, braking, suspension movement, you know, that type of weight is not great on a fast vehicle, but I don't think it's enough to really affect it too negatively. I have run heavy wheels on this vehicle. Those wheels back there are actually they're the stock wheels off of a 6S Mojave. They're fairly heavy and they work great on this truck. So I don't expect there to be any issue. And of course, you know, you're gonna get so much more strength with an aluminum wheel and they look really great. So let me get some more of these tires mounted up and I'll show you guys the end result here. But overall, very nicely made wheel, and I'll link these up below. He has a ton of wheels available for sale. He has check out his eBay store. He makes all kinds of cool stuff. Especially for the RZR Rey, he makes aluminum trailing arms, like all sorts of parts for this thing. I've already done videos on their bell crank assembly for these, for the Hammer Rey, the Rock Rey, the RZR Rey, like pretty much all the Reys, it should work out on those, and those things are really nice. It corrects a lot of the steering issues you have, especially on the Hammer Rey. So really impressed with his parts so far, and these are no less impressive. They are extremely nice. He lists these as fitting the Street Fighter, the Proline Street Fighter tires. Didn't really list what else they would fit, and I had asked him what else, and you know, I decided just to give these a try. I said, let me take one off, and they do fit on with no issue. So I have a feeling you'll be able to use a lot of other tires on these wheels. I can't say what for sure without trying them, but I think most other 2.2 3.0s that would fit a beadlock are gonna fit on here, no problem. I'd be curious to see if the U4 high racks fit on these. I think they would, but let me get these mounted up. Okay, so just got the beadlock rings off. There's no real trick to mounting these up. It's just a matter of getting the bead over the tire, and then just kind of sandwiching it together. So I'm gonna do the back first here. If you do run into issues, a little bit of soapy water or some Simple Green sprayed on there. The rear is definitely much easier. I don't know if it makes a huge difference to do the front first or the rear first, but I'm just gonna do the rear because it's easier. So, and what's nice is the screws that come with these are fairly long, so you can get them all pretty much started. I'm just gonna start a couple by hand, and I will set that to number 2. And just be careful. Again, you don't wanna cross thread anything, but if you got the time, do it by hand. It's just a guarantee that you're not going to really damage anything. So now the front, I like to take the beadlock ring, get it seated in the shoulder of the bead on the tire, and just just kind of line it up with one of the holes, and then just kind of pull around the outside so that ring is seated as deep as it can be into the tire. It's going to give you just a little bit of a head start on these. Okay, so another one done. I always go back around and just snuggle these up by hand just to double check, make sure they all feel like they have even tension. And yeah, and they look really good. Now I need to, easy camera. I need to go and vent these. I probably should have popped a little hole in these first, but I just take a little Dremel with a grinder bit and just make a tiny little hole. These wheels are not vented, so if you're gonna be running in different temperatures and stuff, I like to vent the tire. I don't like vented rims because, especially any rims with a hole on the inside here, you get wet sand and dirt and all kinds of crap. It goes in here, and through like centrifugal force, it wants to drive it out into your tire foam, and you will end up with tires that are just filled with dirt and debris. So always seal up your rims and vent the outside of your tire. Even if they're belted tires, you can do that. It's not gonna hurt anything. I've done it with no issues. So just an example, this is the tip. This is just like a diamond tip, like almost like an engraving. I don't know, it's just a pointy little diamond tip here, probably 1/8 inch. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna get the rest of these mounted up and I'll show you the results, and then we'll go out and give this thing a rip and see how they work. One other thing to take note of, the wheel here in the center by the wheel nut is a little bit thicker, which is nice for strength. The only issue I noticed, the wheel nut doesn't really go on far enough for the nylock portion to really bite onto the threads very well. So I'm just using some purple thread lock on here just to lock it on. Not a big deal, just wanted to make you guys aware of that so that you don't lose a wheel nut. All right, so on to the test results here. Everything worked out great. I had 0 issues with the tires popping off the bead or anything like that. They fit nice and tight. Again, you can just buy these tires brand new from Losi or from A-Main, and you don't have to go through the trouble of baking them off. I just think if you don't want to spend the money, it's a pretty simple process. It worked out great. I had no issues mounting them up to these wheels, so happy with that. the stability that they added, I had mentioned earlier that these weigh, I think, 110 grams more per wheel, so 440 grams total added to the bottom of this rig, and I feel like it's noticeable. This, you'll see in a lot of spots, it just lands on its wheels a lot, and the amount of times I had to actually flip this thing back over, very minimal. It handles extremely well. I really like the stock tires. I don't know that there's a better tire for this type of driving. I don't think there's a better tire for this rig. It allows you to kind of drift around a decent amount without traction rolling, which just makes this so much more fun to drive. Gets good traction, but still allows it to kind of slide side to side a little bit. Unlike the Hammer Ray, which just flips over constantly. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Really happy with this setup. And like I mentioned, the stability, I feel like, is noticeable. You just have that added weight on the bottom, kind of holding the truck down a little bit. Didn't notice any issues in terms of acceleration or braking. I mean, maybe if you did a little head-to-head with one with stock wheels and one with these heavier wheels, you might notice a little bit. But I don't think it's really anything bad to add a little extra weight to these wheels. It didn't have any issues with motor heat or anything like that, so really happy with this setup. The only issue you'll see coming up, I did lose a wheel nut, and I think it's just because I literally just mounted these on, tightened them with a little hand driver with some Loctite, and went right out and ran it. It didn't sit to really cure the thread lock or anything like that, so I'm going to experiment with some different axle nuts. I think something without a flange is probably going to work out perfect, because I don't think you really need a flange nut on an aluminum rim. The aluminum is strong enough where you don't really need that big surface of the flange like you would on a plastic nut. So I have some stainless nuts with the nylock locking portion in it. I think are going to work out fine. And it's not a big deal. I think if you just throw some thread lock on here, maybe use a little bit stronger like blue, let it cure overnight, you're good to go. You're not going to have an issue. Just check them every once in a while, but no big deal. Overall, I forgot how much fun the RZR Rey is. Out of all of the Rays, I think it's the most drivable in terms of like kind of faster. The Baja Rey is great, but the rear suspension on the Baja Rey, just that design, doesn't really lend itself to any type of jumping unless you really go far in one direction tuning it, and then it kind of compromises the rest of the handling. This thing handles so great out of the box. It jumps well. It corners extremely well. It's just a ton of fun to drive. I really love the RZR Rey. I think it's overall it's my favorite of all of the Rays. So as I mentioned before, the wheel nuts, it's good to check these guys. I didn't wait long enough for the Loctite to really dry in here. I just had one pop off. Everything looks fine. I think it just came loose and came flying off. So it would be smart to hit these with a like a little ratchet with a socket on it rather than just like a hand driver. It's going to get much tighter. So I'll throw another nut on here, crank it down really good, and continue ripping. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video, guys. Be sure to check out the link below if you're interested in these wheels or any of the other E-Viratrue products. I'll link up his eBay store. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.